Welcome, y'all. It's Wes with DIY Food Plot Pro. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's episode, we're talking about how we add a significant amount of food to our food plots this time of the year. I'm also going to show you some real life data when you hear about the deer don't eat corn, or corn is never going to produce any inches for your whitetails. We're fixing to prove that wrong as well. We've got a cornfield that I planted back in May, okay? And for the most part, it's around 9-10 feet tall. It's obviously, you can see here, well below that right here next to me. And I wanted to take a minute. I don't really have a minute because we're putting in food plots. We got rain coming tonight. I've already put in 6 today, and I've got at least 3 more to go. But I wanted to take a minute and I wanted to show you some real life stuff that happens out here in these food plots, and some of the theories and what some of the things that they believe about corn are just completely wrong. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about this, and I'm going to tell you how we add a significant amount of food to a plot just like this right here. DIY Food Plot Pro is sponsored by Aircrow LLC, the Plot Protector Pro. Keep whitetails and other animals out of your food plots with the Plot Protector Pro. My name is Wes. I run the channel DIY Food Plot Pro. I've got a Bachelor of Science in Agronomy. I farm for a living, and I've got a 2,900 acre whitetail deer hunting outfitter in Western Kentucky where we cannot bait. So we rely heavily on these food plots that I produce on the channel to hunt and harvest the whitetails that we're blessed to hunt here in Western Kentucky. We've all heard that corn has never grown 1 inch of whitetail antler, right? Very, very common through food plotters across the United States. We've all heard that saying. I'm not trying to put anybody down. That's not the reason to make this video. What I'm simply trying to do is to show that that is incorrect and it's not the right train of thought, okay? So I've got a 2 to 3 acre cornfield here out in the middle of an ag field. It's kind of in a corner nook. Fertilize it well. I plant it by the book, keep it sprayed, and we've got a really good stand of corn here, but the whitetails have absolutely wore us out on this plot right here. This is not the only plot that we have like this. There's a tremendous amount of my cornfields that get lost every year to whitetail damage. And some of this is coon, 100%. Some of it is coon, but more of this is deer than is coon. But I wanted to show you this because I find this odd that we're talking about whitetails eating corn, the vegetative part of corn. They also definitely eat the actual ear, but they eat the leaves and they eat the stalk as well. And so one thing that I find very, very interesting is if I ask 10 people, what is the most preferred summer food source for whitetails, I'm gonna say 8 out of 10 are gonna say soybeans. The ironic thing is we have literally 20 acres of soybeans just directly behind you. I'll scan around here in a minute and show you that. But we have a tremendous amount of soybeans growing down here. Yet the deer are still eating this corn. And they're eating it to the point of almost, I'm a little bit nervous that we're not gonna have enough to get us through deer season. There's a lot of corn, and the corn made really well this year, but the deer are really wiping it out, and they're really doing a lot of thin spots. So what am I doing out here today? This happens every single year in all my cornfields. Deer love to eat corn during the summer. In my experience in Western Kentucky, maybe they don't do that all over the United States, but here in my part of the world, deer will wear out corn all summer long. They just like to eat the stalk. I don't know what it is about it. And then when the actual ear comes on, there's a lot of moisture where the silks are coming out of the ear. They love to eat that. I've got countless hours of videos. A group of does or a group of bucks is in there just eating silks and eating the corn when there's really no corn on the actual plant yet. There's no grain on that actual plant yet. It's just the deer that are eating the vegetation that's on the corn plant. A lot of these are not going to make anything. There's a tremendous amount out here that did make an ear, and the deer just simply came up and ripped it off. There's a lot of plants out here that aren't going to make any food, okay? So if I was to leave this just like it is right now, all of a sudden we have lost maybe an acre of this plot and we have 0 food. So this is what I talk about, what I'm talking about when I like to do these fall mixes, okay? I don't like to mix crops necessarily, but I like to plant a monocrop in the spring, and then I'll come back this fall and I'm going to add mixes into it. So today what I did, I went out through every bit of this corn that's a thin spot. So what I'm talking about is these areas like this that are noticeably shorter, that the deer have been ate on, and there's very few corn stalks out there. What I did is I took about 10 pounds per acre of crimson clover, Kentucky Pride, and I took about 4 pounds of frosty berseem clover, and I added that in here as well. I also added about 1 pound or 2 of purple top turnips and 1 pound or 2 of barncant turnips, okay? So what we did right here is we took a spot that is gonna be null and void. There's nothing here, there's not ever gonna be any food here. And what we did is we came in and all of a sudden now, think about what we have in this plot now. We've got 2 different kinds of annual clovers. We've got corn, we've got turnips, and the only reason I don't have radishes is because I either messed up my order or they didn't send me the right stuff. Because I ordered a bunch of radishes too and I didn't get them, so they're not in the mix. But typically I would have radishes in here as well. And then I'll come back here in the fall. It's too early to do this right here in this big of a plot. But I'll come back later on this fall and I will plant cereal grains in here as well. So I'm gonna have 2 kinds of annual clover, turnips, 2 different types of turnips, corn, and cereal rye. 6 different food sources in one plot that I planted for just one. And the beauty part of this is this corn had plenty of rain, there's plenty of nitrogen left in this to raise the crops that I'm looking to raise. And I'm adding these annual clovers in. That's gonna bank me some nitrogen as well. So I'm not gonna have to add any extra fertilizer to this to be able to raise all of these fall plots in here. And when this gets done, I'm gonna have a tremendous amount of food out here. And I bank on this every year. The first couple years that I did this and the deer just ate all this, I just thought, golly, that just sucks, man. This is really frustrating. We step back and we look at things and we think, okay, how can we turn this into something positive? This is something I've done many, many years, is come back and added these fall food plots in a mix of these monocrops that I plant in the spring. Do the same thing with soybeans. It's actually easier with soybeans, especially if the soybeans are ate down. Now, if the soybeans are, up here neck high, they can't get any sunlight, they're not gonna do well. Same way with corn. If you can't get any sunlight to the ground, these seeds are not gonna do very well. Somebody's gonna ask about pre-emergence. I do put pre-emergence down. And one thing I tell you about that is to read the label and see when the plant back period is. And you gotta understand about chemical companies is they're trying to cover their butt, right? So if, I'm not saying that this is the case, but I'm saying if most of the time, if that chemical's gone in 2 or 3 months, they're not going to put 2 or 3 months on the label. They might put 6 months or 9 months on the label. They want to be 100% sure that their hind end is clear. If somebody plants a high value ag crop behind their residual, I've never had a tremendous amount of issues with that. It's one of those things is if it's going to break the bank and it's really going to hurt your feelings if it don't work, then don't do it. But for my experience, what I've done, we've had plenty of rainfall this year, and this residual is going to be gone for the most part. And I don't see any ill effects from going in here and trying to mix some more food in here with this already successful whitetail plot. Now, a lot of you may think, golly, that's successful. The reality of it is we got a lot of corn out here. Now, there's not nearly as much as what there would have been, but we fed the deer a lot this summer. So that's always a benefit too, is we're feeding the whitetails and we're also giving them some food for this fall and this wintertime months. So we've kind of got a very broad spectrum here of early season, mid-season, late season, and basically carrying them all the way to next spring. This is what you build a food plot program on, is something like a monocrop that you can mix in and add a tremendous amount of extra food to these food plots. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Y'all smash that like and subscribe button.